our aerospace kind of mindset for reliability and excellence, and applied it to kitchen, pizza cooking equipment. And I have to say, it was really fun. Like, just having the stakes seemed a little bit lower. It was not sending astronauts to space, but we were having, cheese issues. We were having dough issues early days. And it was just a blast to be in development mode and just having fun and learning how to handle food products.
Thanks, everyone, once again for joining us and tuning in. Opportunity is the word that comes to mind in today's podcast episode. The industry has been turned upside down by the pandemic, and that has been devastating for a lot of families and a lot of companies and businesses. But it also is seen as a rebirth of this proud industry. Perhaps greater now than ever, more people will be entering this business who don't necessarily have prior restaurant experience, but they see this opportunity. There are lots of spaces across this country that are for lease with fit-ups in place, and the food truck industry is booming. And now is the best time, perhaps the least expensive time, to enter a business that traditionally had been capital intensive, where you can get a food truck or you can get a space that's already fit up and you can enter this business with or without prior experience. So I'm really inspired by this week's guest. It's sort of an entrepreneurial journey story. It is relevant. It is the pizza industry, which is perhaps the most competitive segment of all. But it is a revolutionizing idea that is really going to transform the way pizza is being served and is being created. And you're going to have to stay tuned to find out just how that is and who it is. But it's a really inspired guest with a really interesting engineering past and how that all came to be in this concept. So don't miss this episode.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Everyone knows that Smithfield Culinary has a full line of great ready-to-cook to ready-to-eat products from Smithfield and Margarita. But what else is cooking? Tap into the latest culinary trends and get inspired with new recipes created by real working chefs from across the country. Bring more to the table with flavors and new menu ideas your guests will savor. Visit smithfieldculinary.com or follow @smithfieldculinary on social media. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast, and it is amazing the interesting guests that I get on this podcast. And on a weekly basis, our goal is to share the passion for this industry, the innovation, the technology, the service, the finance, all this combines to run super successful restaurants. And our goal is to bring this to you every single week. So with that said, my guest today, Mr. Benson Tsai, and he is the CEO of a concept called Stellar Pizza. And it's got a really unique twist. So you're going to want to stay tuned to find out why this pizza concept is different from any other pizza concept. So welcome to the show, Benson. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Thanks, Roger. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you and talk about my life and my new venture.
Thank you so much. You have a super interesting background. I know my audience is going to want to hear all about that. But before we get into business, let's talk about what you like to do in your spare time, if you have any. You seem like a pretty busy guy to me, but if you have any time, what do you do when you're not working on Stellar Pizza?
Yeah, the past 2 years have been odd for everyone, but previously I enjoy traveling and doing wildlife photography. That's kind of my passion, and photography in general has been my big hobby. But when you start a company, you don't, at least a venture-backed company, which is what I've started at Stellar Pizza, you don't necessarily get the luxuries of having all that much free time outside of work. And so especially the first 2 years. And so I would say one of my hobbies is just building companies and networking and talking to people.
Mine too. And I've been in your shoes. I've been in a lot of different businesses, the restaurant being probably one of the most interesting businesses, certainly one of the more challenging, if not the most challenging business. So that's tremendous. Let's talk about your backstory, because my audience knows that I always ask about backstory and hospitality, if that's relevant to you. Whether you started off young, whether you cooked in the kitchen with your mother, it's like everyone's got a different story. But how did it, start for you? And Why pizza? Because I really want to get into your tech background. But before we go there, let's talk about hospitality and if you have a backstory there.
Yeah. So my parents are immigrants from Taiwan, and they moved here in the early '80s. And actually, their first business in the United States was a fish and chips restaurant in Los Angeles, and it was tough. It was stressful for them. My family's roots are in the restaurant industry here in America. They since moved on to start their own they were both very entrepreneurial, and they each started their own businesses. My mom started an after school Chinese program in a tutoring center, and then my dad started an import export picture frame company. And so entrepreneurial life was sort of baked into my DNA, and my sister also has her own company. So this is it runs in the family. But growing up in Los Angeles, I just didn't realize how much access to like food, just food from all over the world.
Correct.
It's a unique place.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
So I went to college in Los Angeles as well. The Claremont Colleges, Harvey Mudd College specifically, which is a great engineering school.
I had a business partner that went to Claremont, and I lived in LA for 3 years, so it's familiar to me. I had a business partner that went to Claremont, so that's all relevant. Keep going.
Yeah. And well, actually, while I was in college, had trouble trying to figure out what kind of engineer I wanted to be, and I remember I was obsessed with this TV show called Unwrapped, which was back in the day. They would just give you tours of factories making, cookies at scale, tortillas, it was just like food factory equipment. And it, just as an engineer, to connect what I was learning with things that I was putting into my mouth, that was really cool. And so I actually started pointing my engineering expertise towards chemical engineering, which is the scale up and mass production of any chemical process, food being one of them.
Yes.
And at the same time, I remember going to a Krispy Kreme that had just opened. And I don't know if you've ever been inside a Krispy Kreme.
I have.
They show you the factory, the little equipment.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you watch the donuts being made, and it's pretty killer. And that is a marketing hook unto itself.
Right. And just as an aspiring engineer, I just looked at the equipment. I was like, this is amazing. And I think one thing that struck me was the curtain of frosting that they have that the donuts go through, and like how perfect it was. And so I actually was very interested in fluid mechanics because, I started studying fluid mechanics and actually went to graduate school at the University of Minnesota to learn, to get a degree, a PhD in chemical engineering. And I remember sitting through seminars where we would talk about coating frosted flakes with the right amount of sugar. I just loved food.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Around that time, though, one of my classmates from Harvey Mudd had been at Stanford, and he got plugged into the startup scene and just said, "Hey, let's start a company," right? And so I packed up I got my master's, packed up my things, and moved to Silicon Valley, where I got started in the tech world. And we started a company called Motive Power Systems, doing electric buses and trucks. That journey was super fun. Then I had the opportunity to work at another now prominent electric vehicle company, but back then we were this small group of people. Lucid Motors is the company I'm talking about, and so I got plugged into the electric vehicle world as it was developing, and while I was at Lucid, got to take part in developing some key battery technologies that are now in the vehicle today. Was excited to have been a part of the EV world, early days, clean tech, making an impact on this earth. But my next adventure actually came with SpaceX. I moved back to LA, and one of the most exciting companies at the time was SpaceX. And so I, got connected and ended up taking a job as a battery engineer at SpaceX, developing battery systems for, I was there for 5 years, and I worked on the Dragon spacecraft as well as the Starlink battery system. And I guess fun fact is that like my name is etched on that car that SpaceX launched.
Oh, the one that's floating around the atmosphere? No
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. The Tesla
Um,
Roadster, isn't it?
yeah. And in my five
Yeah.
years there, 76 rocket launches, which is more than most aerospace engineers, whole careers, right? So
So we could call you a real rocket scientist in the way.
that's right. That's right.
And you played a part in moving into space exploration and all that kind of stuff, which is ongoing. And battery technology is obviously the future of all types of transportation. So wow, that's quite a backstory and quite an interesting resume that you have. So Silicon Valley, and you mentioned venture capital. So obviously that's where you met venture
Yep.
capitalists or firms and whatnot. And some of these firms have launched companies such as Lyft, which is obviously Uber's main competitor and all that kind of stuff. So let's do the transition to Stellar Pizza now, because you got this brainchild. You've been involved in startups before. You're an entrepreneurial guy. Where did the idea for Stellar Pizza come from, and why pizza?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So my parents are immigrants from Taiwan, and
Mhm.
the only American foods allowed in the house were In-N-Out and pizza. And
Oh,
so,
got it.
that was just something I was raised on, and that's I think something a lot of children of the 80s,
Definitely.
90s were raised on, and still
Yep.
today, right? So pizza, there's not a single person that I've run into where they've like, I hate pizza. Everybody loves pizza. I love pizza too. It's fantastic. It's cheese is just one of my favorite things, and any vehicle for cheese, I'm on board with. But how I got into, I talked a little bit about my interest in food production and food in general.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so it was really just taking a look at what I wanted to do in the next chapter of my life post SpaceX. I was there for 5 years, and decided it was time to move on and work on things that I really really was passionate about. And so
Cheese keeps popping into your head, right? It's like I'm
Geez.
creating batteries, but I love cheese, and God, I
Yeah,
love
no.
pizza. Okay, keep going.
No, and then I looked at. I think there was a time where I remember ordering DoorDash in once or
Mhm.
Postmates or one of them, and it was a kid who handed me my food, and I was like, this seems like a little odd that this kid needs to be working and the mom is driving the car, and I was like, there's something wrong with the system, and so I started digging into food delivery as like the economics of food delivery, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, and so it's sort of a combination of like my passions and then I could see that the restaurant world was changing, and this was pre-pandemic too, right?
Yep. Mhm.
I could see that the restaurant world was changing, and I wanted to be a part of that. Just like I saw the electric vehicles being the future of the automotive industry, and so it just kind of, I did my research, and I was like, well, I love pizza, and pizza just is one of the most commonly delivered food items, and it just I was like, let's build a pizza company.
I'm sure it's number one, right? It's right up there.
Yeah, yeah,
And Domino's kind of put delivery for pizza on the map so many decades ago, and
yes.
and still so many independents now deliver their pizza. And I had my very first restaurant concept was pizza. It was wood-fired pizza. It was inspired by real Neapolitan pizza from Naples. And I
Yeah,
could tell you stories about going to Naples and finding the oldest pizzeria on the planet, where technically the product itself was invented sometime in the early 1800s. And the same family literally runs this oldest pizzeria, and it's passed down from generation to generation. And I lived in Italy for a summer, Benson, and
yeah.
I just have to tell this story because it's so sort of relevant and fun at the same time. And I had very basic Italian. I'm living in Italy. And then years later, this idea of starting a pizzeria pops into my head, and it had to be wood fired and it had to be authentic. So I was reading an article in one of those foodie magazines about the oldest pizzeria on the planet still exists, and it's been passed down from generation to generation. I just had to go to Naples and find this place. I walked in there, and sure, there's this beautiful wood-fired oven in front of you, and it's a work of art, and it's this beautiful tiled thing, and it's in an old historic space, and that may in fact have been the original location and everything. And in my very basic Italian, I spoke to the people saying, I'm starting this pizzeria in Maine, and it's like I'm really inspired by Neapolitan pizza, and I'd love to learn as much as I can about it. Next thing you know, they throw an apron at me over the counter and back I go. And I spent the day making pizza in the oldest pizzeria on the planet and learning some secrets to their pies. And that became a huge marketing story for my restaurant because I thought, who else can say that, So I just had to throw that in there because I was passionate and still am about pizza as well. So I don't mean to interrupt you. Let's get back to Stellar.
Yeah.
Where did the name come from?
Well, yeah, we started as serve automation, just a generic name, more thinking through. We wanted to serve the world, and the kind of additional motivation here is I think automation is one of the only ways we keep like food costs low.
Right.
like,
Streamlined efficiencies, automation.
The cost of living keeps going up, and so serve automation was sort of selected initially. But we are now, it took a long time to be honest. It took a long time to come to Stellar Pizza. The funny thing is, though, in my early job descriptions that I wrote, I would, at the end of the description, I'd be like, join a Stellar team, just because it was like a fun. I was like tongue in cheek. I was like, we're a bunch of rocket scientists building a space company. And then
it's got connotations to both. It's got the space sort of aspect to it, but it's also got this sort of superior, cool aspect to it as well. So that makes sense.
Exactly. And so when I saw the name, I was like, that's it. Like there was we looked at others, Rocket Pizza, other things that were like fast, Fire Pizza. Like there were definitely a lot of interesting names out there, but Stellar Pizza just it was too good.
So when will you launch exactly?
Yeah, so we're still working through that right now, but we'll be in LA, summer-ish.
And what have been the biggest challenges? We were talking about venture capital before I got us off track, talking about Italy, but we started saying, okay, you're really well networked and that you've got venture capital. What was that process like of convincing them of this concept? And what's your big vision for this? And how did all that come together in order to start putting the pieces in place and start moving towards your launch? Let's talk about that whole process, because I asked that question because this is an unprecedented time in the hospitality space where unfortunately, the pandemic has decimated much of the industry and so many restaurants have closed, but then you can look at it as a rebirth and new people are entering the industry and there's spaces available and there's fully fit up spaces that don't require huge investments and you can just move right in if you've got a concept and an idea, and food trucks are at an all-time high. There's so much opportunity for people who may have no prior restaurant experience. So I asked that question for that reason. But what was the process like for you initially to get this whole thing rolling, meet your investors, put the whole piece together, and then your team? A team is super important. So I want to talk about your team as well. So without getting any further off track, just take us through the process of being an entrepreneur, coming up with a brainchild idea, getting it venture backed, and then putting the pieces in place to actually launch and open the business and then expand that business. Not answering your phone is one of the quickest ways for your restaurant to lose a potential customer. That's why your restaurant needs Pop Menu's newest product, Pop Menu Answering. With Pop Menu Answering, your restaurant will never miss a phone call. Pop Menu Answering is powered by artificial intelligence to answer the simple questions most people call in with, like, do you have outdoor seating? Or, what are your hours? This means the basic questions that keep your phone line tied up can now be handled without pulling a team member away from your in-person hospitality. Pop Menu Answering picks up your phone 24/7, 365 days a year, turning every phone call into an opportunity, all while reducing your labor costs and increasing customer satisfaction. Plus, Pop Menu's full collection of tools help optimize your restaurant's website and menu, streamlines your ordering experience, and assists in remarketing to enable you to build long-lasting relationships with your guests. Get help answering your restaurant's calls now with Pop Menu Answering. And for a limited time, my listeners can get $100 off their first month, plus lock in one unchanging monthly rate at popmenu.com/rockstars. Go now to get $100 off your first month at popmenu.com/rockstars. If you can take us through that whole thing, that's huge.
It's a difficult question because so much there's just too much information.
There really is, right?
Yeah,
1,000 details.
1,000 little details, and it's hard to remember every little detail. But
give us the 30,000 foot view looking down.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted to get into food robotics. It was clear that, and given my history in developing, medium to heavy duty trucks, I knew that made a lot of, like, I had knowledge of how to put a vehicle together and how to manufacture vehicles, at scale. And so it just sort of clicked. At the time, there was another company called Zoom Pizza, which was also robotics plus pizza, but they were really more of a logistics, data kind of based company. And I thought that we could build the dream, which is everybody, like in science fiction books, people write about, at least in Star Trek, there's like the replicator, food just appears magically, right?
Yep.
And so I was thinking through, early days, like, how do we just get food to appear magically without, as with minimal effort on the part of human hands, right? And it just sort of clicked together. I think pizza, we talked about a lot of different concepts, but it just kept coming back to pizza, and I was like, this is what we're going to do. We talked. I had some friends who were friends of mine, specifically Chrissy Meyer at Root Ventures. She was just a friend working at Apple, and then I didn't realize that she had become a venture capitalist. And I looked at her venture capital firm, and they had been investors in the hamburger robot company. So there was just a lot of weird coincidences.
Yes, I'm getting that. Isn't it weird how life takes you and your background? You have no idea. Okay, I'm building batteries in the automotive industry, but 10 years from now, I'm going to be doing X. And because I knew this person, now this person's going to make that happen. And that's how life works. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I get a lot of people asking me if I plan to work at space, college students are asking for advice. And the answer that I give is like, no, I didn't set out to start a pizza company. I just wanted to work on things I was passionate about. And if you expose yourself to those opportunities, you get to make the, cool decisions to be a part of fun adventures.
Did you have a business plan, a formal plan that literally had A to B? This is my executive summary, and this is the overall concept, and this is my marketing plan, and these are my financial projections, and this is what my 5-year growth plan looks like, and I need X and such amount of money, and this is how I'm going to spend it. I mean, did you need that?
Yeah, with venture capital, especially early days when you're just a small team of 2 to 3 people, you need a vision. Obviously, you need all the projections, but 5-year projections when your company is just getting off the ground just seem like it doesn't seem real, right? And so it's more about the vision and the team and being able to convince investors that you want this to be the next 10, 20 years of your life or more, right? And that is the truth. And so that's what I did. And we raised our first round of funding in short order and started running the company.
What's interesting about the venture business, there are those that are looking for the immediate exit strategy. And then there are those that are looking for evergreen companies to be part of a lasting legacy. And there's a return on investment long into the future, right? And everything in between, perhaps. And I don't know what your experience has been, but what's your goal obviously is to create something that grows and that lasts and has huge potential for the future, but then it may have brand extensions and then stellar this and stellar that and merchandising. And it could be a huge brand. It could revolutionize the way pizza is served and delivered. And you're already looking to that. Yep. And I can't speak for what that vision is, but let's talk about it if you're open to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, vision changes over time, right? As you start a company, you think what your vision is, and at the early days, it was just like, I want to build food, I want to build fast, affordable foods for people, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought that robotics was sort of the answer to that.
Let's get into the robotics because we really haven't talked about it. One of the I mentioned early, this is not your average pizza, okay? So we're going to talk about the process, but before we go there, bring the robotics into this and why it's a robotics powered, pizza concept. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, good question. I don't think we've talked a lot about Stellar Pizza. We haven't really actually told the listener what it
Keeping them
actually
on
is.
the edge of their seat, Benson. You got them in suspense.
So Stellar Pizza is we're building a pizza company powered by what we call mobile automated restaurants. So automated machines making food. The long-term vision is to have them prepping food on the go and delivering to your houses. But it's a company that wants to deliver fast, fresh, affordable foods, and the robotics sort of are in service of that goal, right? We can deliver it fast because it's going to be closer to you. We can deliver it fresh also because it's closer to you, but it's going to be much more consistent because we don't have to train a single person on how to make pizza. We have a machine that you load in the raw dough balls and toppings in the morning, and then it will make it's like fully end-to-end cooking. So it will take a dough ball, open the dough ball up, flatten it out and press it out, and then add the toppings and cook it, at 800, 900 degrees. Our oven is this custom designed, super, I like to call it our rocket engine, targeted at it's just cooking the pizza.
Is it a conveyor concept, or it's a traditional conventional oven that just burns at that high degree level?
It's a deck oven. So
Okay.
there is a launch conveyor that puts the pizza into the oven, but it is not a convection.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so it's a high temperature convection oven that just gets loaded automatically.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Now let's talk about the prep. What kind of prep is involved here? Because you got different ingredients, and I don't know how extensive your menu is going to plan on being, but okay, you've got obviously the dough that has to be created, whether that's sourced or it's made fresh. And then it needs to be obviously baked with cheese and toppings and all that kind of stuff. So what's the prep like? And do you have like a commissary kitchen that prepares all this in advance?
Yeah. So the commissary is where we will be, prepping all of our dough, all of our ingredients, and loading that into the vehicle. So raw, not flour, not water goes into the truck, but fully proofed dough balls go into the vehicle, and as well as our toppings. So we have, our cheese we have our cheese, and then we have pepperoni that's actually freshly sliced. So we have our logs of pepperoni. I don't know if you've seen any of our videos, but the pepperonis get sliced by this bandsaw. And then ultimately, then whatever toppings you want get put onto it. And from a menu perspective, I mentioned earlier that In-N-Out and pizza were the only two American foods allowed in my house growing up. We're trying to be In-N-Out for pizza. That is the goal. We want to have a super classic menu. Yeah. We're not trying to take the place of the fancy Italian restaurant. We just want to deliver, high quality, fresh pizza.
Okay. Now, I originally thought this was a food truck concept, and it is a truck, but it doesn't park in a fixed location. It literally delivers on the fly while it's making its pizza. Is that what you see happening here?
So that is the future that we want to head towards. We will also be able to function as a food truck. There's nothing that prevents us from functioning as a food truck. Yeah.
Either way. Yep.
So the flexibility allows us to operate in a nimble way and hopefully get pizza to people faster.
Okay. Let me go back to the whole venture thing. Now we're suddenly venture backed. What were the pieces and the steps required once you got your funding? Like, how did you, what came first, second, and third, and hiring a team? We talked a little bit about a team. Like, who else is involved in this, and what are the critical pieces to get you to where you are right now?
Yeah. So the first few years, first year or so, year and a half, 2 years was all about the hardware. So I needed an amazing hardware team, right? So a design engineering team to build and build the machine from scratch. There was nothing that we could buy off the shelf that would fit in a vehicle, that would fit within the economics, the budget that we needed the vehicle to be designed to, right? So it was pretty, like, our early team. Well, even today we're 30 people, and 24 are ex-SpaceX. So it's a pretty extraordinary team of rocket scientists working.
Oh yeah, totally. Oh, that's awesome.
And then Debbie Goldberg, who was one of the co-founders of Fresh Brothers Pizza, I met her and I was like, you got to be a part of this future. Like this, and it was clear to her that automation was coming to the food industry. And so we were lucky enough to snag her and have her join the team as our chief marketing officer. She is someone who built a pizza brand in a recession, post 2008, and for 10 years she'd been operating Fresh Brothers. For me, I built a truck company in a recession, and it just seemed funny. Both her and I just are now building a pizza truck company. So
that's that weird quirk of life and fate and how things come together. And that is awesome. That's right. So cool. Always got to be open to opportunity. You don't know what's around the next corner, but that is a really cool part of the story. Okay, so there's your team. So what happened next? Now you got a team. It's like we got money. It's like, how do we spend it?
We build. So if you were a restaurant and you found your spot, we got our warehouse, we found our spot, and then you would look for kitchen equipment. For us, we couldn't look for kitchen equipment. We had to design our own kitchen. Well, we did look, and then we decided to design our own kitchen equipment. And so it was engineering development. The next year and a half was heads down. We made a lot of prototype ovens, prototype topping dispense, cheese dispense. There were so many iterations I can't count. And we sort of took our SpaceX, our aerospace kind of mindset for reliability and excellence and applied it to kitchen, pizza cooking equipment. And I have to say, it was really fun. Like just having the stakes seemed a little bit lower. It was not sending astronauts to space, but we were having, cheese issues. We were having dough issues early days. And it was just a blast to be in development mode and just having fun and learning how to handle food products.
And prototypes of the pizza, you probably ate quite a bit of that, right? Refining the whole thing. And you were like loving that.
Yeah. It's not every day that you get to sample, the product that you're making. So these days, when we run our tests on our machine, you hit a button and 400 pizzas fall out of the machine. so it's fun. It's a different kind of life than working in the aerospace industry or in the vehicle industry.
So going back in my history, I remember coming up with the dough recipe because we made our dough from scratch. We made our sauces every day from scratch. And, we hired a chef as a consultant to come up with the pizza recipes before we actually had someone that was going to run our kitchen. And we were all learning. We were inspired by many different kinds of pizza. So that's a whole process unto itself, So did you hire, some sort of a kitchen manager or a chef that literally had pizza experience? Like, tell us about that in order to formulate your recipes. And are you going to have signature pizzas as well as people can make their own? It's like, that's the traditional model of pizza. How's your model look?
Yeah. So actually our head of, culinary operations is also from SpaceX. He goes by the name of Chef Ted Sisma. And he spent 10 years at SpaceX feeding all of the hungry engineers, 2.5-3 meals a day. But before SpaceX, he actually opened a number of restaurants and
awesome.
And comes from the food industry.
Man, that's great.
So he was kind of the key player in helping us develop our recipe. But we did hire, we hired in pizza consultants to come in and help us perfect our recipe and deal with issues like our dough at one point was bubbling too much when we cooked it, and we learned through the master, through all these consultants of how to manage that.
But you surrounded yourself with good people that you knew that you'd worked with before that had sort of chemistry and camaraderie and all those important things. And that's your core team. And then obviously you're hiring like-minded people that have the right approach and the right personalities, but can add something to that piece, which is the magic formula of staffing any restaurant, And unfortunately today in the everyday restaurant business, the labor crisis is forcing people just to hire anybody they can pull in off the street. And unfortunately, the guest experience suffers. But when we get back to more of a normal situation, that is typically what you're doing. You're building the dream team staff, and you got a vision for the future. Everyone shares the vision. You got a mission statement, and company culture gets developed, and you build a lasting legacy company. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting because the robotics allow us to decouple the sort of training or like food training part that
Yep.
I don't know that anyone, like the food prep and ingredients and cooking, like it allows us to hire people who are just solely focused on the customer experience, right? That pleasant customer interaction, whether it's someone walking up to our truck or whether it's delivering the food. So I think it's the automation allows us to focus on the things that customers really care about.
Well, that word disruption gets thrown around an awful lot, and it's become a cliche now. But originally in the venture industry, it's like companies that were going to disrupt industries were highly sought after and valued. And it clearly, I'm getting the sense that you are going to turn the whole pizza industry upside down with this concept. And of course, with innovation comes imitation and all that other kind of stuff. But then therein lies the branding and the marketing and all that sort of thing. And it sounds like you're thinking all this through 10 steps ahead. What happens when, and this is our growth strategy, and we're going to stay on top. We're going to be the first. We're going to be the best. We're going to train our staff to be literally representatives, ambassadors for this company when they deliver pizzas, and it's like no one's going to touch us. But then you wonder what's going to happen and how you're going to counteract all those potential threats that you may or may not have written into your business plan when you're originally attracting capital. Sometimes you got to think about all this stuff. It's not all plus, it's not all upside. What's the downside, and how are we going to deal with the downside in order to overcome and achieve our objectives? So, right. You went through all that. You're going through all that.
That's just sort of life building a company, watching my parents build their own companies. There was no smooth path to profits. It was hard. It was arduous. Like, people should not start companies unless they know what they're getting themselves into. And I think restaurants are one of the hardest types of companies to build, right? It's a difficult process and
super competitive. And your segment is the most competitive, yet you are clearly standing apart from the rest of the industry that's going this way, and you're going this way. That's awesome. I think that's tremendous.
Yeah, to touch on you use the word disruption, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is something that people do, at least investors do seek out. And there's also sort of disruption for, to the detriment of society and disruption for the greater good, right? And I like to think that like automation is coming to the robotics world, or automation is coming to the restaurant world. You already see it inside McDonald's. You see the drink machine is fully, I don't know, have you looked inside like the auto drink dispenser? Like, it's there already.
Yeah.
And so it's just taking over more and more of the back of house. And for me, I think the exciting part of what I get to build with Stellar Pizza is that we get to offer consumers a lower price and really, it's disruption for what I want to be the greater good of society.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because people have seen over decades what a pizza should cost, and it stays relatively same from one pizza place to the next. And obviously the chains have an advantage, and Little Caesars can offer 2 large pizzas for however much they charge, and these promotions happen all the time based on economies of scale and based on buying power, and independents can't do that. And now rising costs and supply chain issues and all this kind of stuff. And I'm getting efficiency from you, and I'm getting low labor cost from you, which obviously helps you lower the price, but you're still offering a high quality product, right? So let's talk about, if you even care to, what's the price differential between any typical pizza place versus your service that literally is going to come door to door and offer somebody a high quality product with convenience, with speed, with a good price that's affordable for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, so our target pricing is definitely sub $10 right now. $7 for a cheese pizza, a 12-inch pie, which is a medium.
Yep.
At like a Domino's. And in the same neighborhood, if you order a medium cheese pizza, at Domino's without any of the coupons, it's $13 or $14, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So we want to be competitive, and I think we can be a little more competitive than our competition. There is also like we want to avoid bargain basement prices, because then you
no, that cheapens your brand. You want to
Yeah,
you want to be in a sweet spot on your
that's right.
pricing that suddenly is a non-decision maker for anyone to say, oh, that's great price. I've tried this before. The buzz is going to kick in. Obviously, this is going to take off because it's so unique and different, and people are just going to try it just to try it. But then
Yeah,
once they try it, if you deliver on the quality and the value and the speed and everything we're talking about, it's a grand slam. So, but you don't want to cheapen the brand or the product.
exactly.
You want to find that magic spot that everyone's happy with
Mhm.
and go from there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Cool. That is so fun. Okay, so labor wise, we talked about the commissary kitchen and the trucks being preloaded with stuff. Talk about the process of, okay, the truck just drove away from the commissary. Now it's on its mission to delivering pizzas, and it's making pizzas en route. And how many people are in a truck, and who's making pizza? And you got a driver, and then you got somebody that delivers it to the door. Tell me about that whole thing.
Yeah. So we're still early stage. Like
Yep.
to be honest, we things can change in the future, right? But this first year, we're going to launch and we're going to be in parking lots as a food truck, and it only needs one, like the requirements for operating a vehicle is one person, because you can order on our app and the order gets automatically submitted into the machine, gets queued up, and you know exactly when your pizza is falling out of the machine. And so there really is minimal effort beyond a person just interacting with customers and being like, hey, this is what you don't have our app, you download our app. Like it's solely focused on the customer experience at that point, because food prep is and handing off the pizza to the customer. So there's no humans involved.
I'm getting the sense that George Jetson is driving this truck. And the machine is literally making it automatically, like the robot machine is making the pizza, and George is driving the truck. And then you're going to have drones that lift off the top of the truck and delivers it right to the front
Our
doorstep
future.
and rings the doorbell. And the money is automatic transmission, automatically translated. Like,
Yeah. The optimism for the future that we had in the 80s, I kind of want to bring back. Like I
yeah.
want to make that future a reality. The dystopian sci-fi is all the rage these days, but I think
Mhm.
I want to bring back that optimism for the future, and that's what Stellar Pizza brand-wise hopes to be.
How many trucks do you plan on rolling out initially?
This year, a small fleet, so four to six trucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And it's focused on certain territories or
Los Angeles.
locations.
So we're
All
gonna
the neighborhoods. I mean, LA is a pretty big place.
yeah.
And now you suddenly have the traffic problem. How do we overcome the traffic?
Yeah, the traffic problem is interesting, because our trucks aren't going to be getting on the freeway to deliver. They're going to be operating in a
Surface
radius.
streets.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's still traffic, but the idea is to start in a small neighborhood and
Mhm.
prove that we are delivering on that customer experience, and then expanding with trucks. And also kind of the advantage we have is ultimately to ebb and flow and move our trucks around to where demand for our pizza exists.
And it's sort of a hub and spoke, where the warehouse or the commissary is this hub. And then you got spokes going off in different directions with 4 or 5 trucks to certain neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And where's the warehouse located?
Right now, our offices are in Hawthorne, actually across the street from SpaceX.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Hawthorne. I used to go down to Torrance all the time. I
Yeah.
worked in the advertising business up on Wilshire Boulevard, and our client was American Honda down in Torrance.
Yeah.
So spent a good amount of time in that neighborhood, but that was decades ago. This is fantastic. So do you consider who your competition is or will be? Do you think about that?
I would say so. Our competition,
Even though you're so unique, I mean, there's still
Yeah,
lots of people selling pizza out there, and you'll quickly differentiate your brand, but you still have competition.
our competition is anyone who sells pizza, really, right? And
Sure.
and not necessarily sells pizza in the experiential restaurant kind of way. The Neapolitan pizza doesn't do well with delivery, right? Like I
Yep.
think it's ultimately just we want to be an option for people, a better, faster, more affordable option for people who want pizza in their house, who want pizza to carry out and take home, right? And so the fortunate thing about the pizza industry is it's always growing and it's huge. So there's room for everyone.
Definitely. Let's dive into marketing. You talked about having a chief marketing officer. that's obviously been down the block in this particular industry and is going to set the world on fire. What is your marketing strategy, unless it's top secret, confidential?
Yeah, it's not something that I think I'm ready to speak to.
Okay. No worries.
It's a strategy that we're working. We haven't launched yet, so there's not nothing to talk about until we launch, I think. Yeah.
Not a problem. Fantastic. What's your advice to other entrepreneurs such as yourself? We talked a lot about networking and connections and crazy things that happen that you can't anticipate. But there's a lot of people out there with dreams that, don't want to have their job every single day going into the future. And maybe they want to cash in their 401ks, or maybe the time is right to start a restaurant, or whether they're in this industry or not. It's like entrepreneurship is the backbone of this country. And obviously it's just leading our economy forward. And it's all about creating jobs and creating opportunities and creating just really cool concepts like yours. And you're an entrepreneur and you grew up in an entrepreneurial family. And not everyone can say that. Most people have traditional parents that had traditional jobs, and you're a product of your environment and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't stop the human spirit from being inspired by things and saying, I wish I could do that. And so many things hold us back from achieving our dreams and goals. So if you could inspire anyone listening to this podcast to go for it, if you got a crazy idea or a not so crazy idea and you've always wanted to do it, don't let anything hold you back. What would your advice be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's to not be afraid of sucking at something new. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. That's a barrier, right? It's like, if I'm not great at this, but I really believe in the idea, it's like, I got to steamroll past that.
People aren't great at anything they start doing, right? Like, you have to learn. Life is a constant learning process, and you're not going to be, the overnight successes take years to make happen, right? And I think realizing that will help a lot of people get over the barrier of just being so apprehensive. Like, what if I suck? Like, you just don't worry. Like, that's what's going to happen. You are going to not be so great initially. Figure it out.
For a tech person, you're a creative, you're a shining light, you're an inspiring person, and you've got a very open and inviting personality. You're so easy to talk to, and you've added so much to our podcast. So I can't thank you enough, Benson, for being with us.
Thank you for those kind words. It's been fun just thinking through. You've asked great questions, and it's fun to reflect on the past.
It's been certainly fun talking to you, and we wish you all the best in the future of success with Stellar Pizza. And I look forward to watching your journey. I'm going to keep close tabs on this, and when you launch, I'm going to be rooting for you, because everything you've said makes perfect sense. It's been well thought through as a concept. And you're just hurdling the barriers every single day, and you're putting the right people in place, and you're making the right decisions. And the world is your oyster. So keep rocking on that.
Thank you. Nothing's a sure thing, but I'm working hard trying to make it happen.
Well, we wish you the best, and we wish you all to stay well. Thanks so much to our audience for listening in. That was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Thanks for being with us, and stay well. Thank you so much, Benson, for being a great guest on this podcast. Again, that word inspired and inspiring keeps coming up, but I think you've given us all some really amazing snippets of your journey as being an entrepreneur, being in a very entrepreneurial industry before, being in an entrepreneurial industry now, and what your future plans are. And I think the inspiration comes in that now is the time for opportunity. I think now is the time, if you have a vision or a dream or a goal or something you've always wanted to achieve, or just you think you've got a better idea to do something, now's the time to seize that opportunity and move forward. So thanks to Benson for being a great guest. And thanks so much for our sponsors of this week's episode, Pop Menu, Smithfield Culinary, and the Restaurant Rockstars Academy. Speaking of which, if you have a goal and a dream and you need to start a business in the hospitality or restaurant space, the Restaurant Rockstars Academy is an all-inclusive I've never been in this business before. I've got a dream. This is everything I need to know to open the doors of that business. And even if I am a veteran and I've been in this business before, it's also everything I've learned in 25 years of running super profitable restaurants. So how to maximize profit, how to increase sales, how to train my staff to deliver amazing dining experiences, how to market for very little money that has real powerful return on investment that drives new and repeat business. It's all included in the Restaurant Rockstars Academy. So check that out at restaurantrockstars.com. Don't forget to leave us a question. So in the show notes to this episode, about halfway down, you'll see that button. Ask us anything. Press the record button. You can record a message to me and I'll happily answer you right back with another recording. And hopefully we can share that on the air in the future. So thanks again for everyone tuning in. We'll see you next time.
People go to restaurants for lots of reasons. What the customer doesn't know is the thousands of details it takes to run a great restaurant. This is a high-risk, high-fail business. It's a treacherous road, and smart operators need a professional guide. I'm Roger. I've started many highly successful, high-profit restaurants. I'm passionate about helping other owners and managers not just succeed, but knock it out of the park. You don't just want to run a restaurant. You want to dominate your competition and create a lasting legacy. Join the Academy, and I'll show you how it's done.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.